Thank you for being a part of the Word of Encouragement here on this Thursday. And today I'd like to go directly to the testimony of the Apostle Paul. 2 Corinthians has often been called the heart of Paul. This church had needs, and so Paul just opens up his true feelings. The Spirit of God uses that to give us understanding of how you can have victory and the right perspective on navigating the issues of life. And as he was talking about these people that he was burdened for, and he was also speaking about the victories that they were having there in the church, he mentions that this was a great comfort to him because he was really involved in some real problems. Verse 4 of chapter 7 says, "Great is my boldness of speech toward you, great is my glorying of you. I am filled with comfort. I am exceeding joyful in all our tribulation. For when we were coming to Macedonia, our flesh had no rest, but we were troubled on every side. Without were fightings, wherein were fears. Nevertheless, God that comforteth those that are cast down, comforted us by the coming of Titus," speaking about the Corinthian people. The great comfort during times of trial is to hear of God working in lives in whom you have invested. As John said, there's no greater joy than to hear that his children walk in truth. And he is, I think, speaking of his spiritual children doing what God wanted them to do. And Paul is saying that in the midst of the troubles and the fightings and the fears and the tribulations that he was facing, there was a great comfort when Titus came and told of some of the victories that were going on. That just lifted him and encouraged him in the midst of the other pressures that he was facing. I've said it on a number of occasions, but remember, the Apostle Paul was in a one-world government, Rome. Many of the things that we're seeing today and concern us happened there with the Apostle Paul. You had a wicked man, Nero, who was on the throne, and there was a great animosity against Bible-believing Christians. And yet, in the midst of the paganism, in the midst of the awful sin, and in the midst of all of this darkness, the Apostle Paul found comfort in the lives of believers who were having victory. And so, when we give of ourselves, sometimes it's tough, sometimes it's discouraging. But when we lead people to Christ and then disciple them and just care about them, just do some mentoring or work with them, when they take steps of growth, I don't care what's going on around you, you're going to be encouraged because you're going to see God working. When you see God working in your family because you are bringing the Lord into that home and they're growing, it doesn't matter what's going on around you. You're encouraged. When you see a disciple take steps of faith, you're going to be encouraged. When people in your Bible study and in your church that you are interacting with begin to grow in the Lord, you're going to be encouraged because you're seeing God at work. And that's what we need to encourage us. So friend, I wanted to just urge you today to invest your lives in others and ask God to use you to see miracles happen. And so in the midst of, as Paul is saying, some pretty difficult things, in the midst of that kind of situation, you'll hear news, you'll observe things that will lift your spirit because you will see God on the move. Let's join with God to do his great work in this day.